which obviously you are a thought leader. You speak a lot about diversity and inclusion. It's your passion. What is it that you are trying to inspire, trying to change about not just the industry, but also society, I guess, because it doesn't really stop at the industry with the topics that you discuss?
Yeah, so the reason also why it doesn't stop at the industry is because I don't come from a tech background.
Right.
It isn't what I intended to do, let's put it that way. I actually studied sports science, and I
Wow.
was, the first student with a disability to study sports science at university
Really?
in Belgium. So
Wow.
that was initially what I wanted to do. I wanted to
Yeah.
become a lifestyle coach.
Okay.
So that was kind of my world, and then I got into technology, which we can dive into, maybe
Yeah,
a
for
bit
sure.
later. But and so I translated that, and also the reasons why I made that transition, and so those things that I speak about are really for everyone in any industry.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just an important topic, and it's definitely one that's close to my heart as I have a disability myself.
Yeah.
I'm neurodiverse, so I never really spoke about being neurodiverse
Okay.
until like some people said, "Oh, but Alex, that's also part of your disability, which you can talk about." And so now
Right.
that's something that I add into what I speak about as well.
Amazing. So you're trying to inspire change all over, really. And I guess obviously you speak about your disability, and I think with things such as gender and race and age, I think some industries are more biased than others against those different topics. But I guess with disability, do you feel like it is in certain industries that it's more biased, or do you just think it's a societal problem as a whole?
I think the main thing is, when we talk about it, and not only me, it's not even to really inspire. Like
Yeah.
that's not really. We really want to push the change. We don't
Yeah.
really want to be like the voice for the others. We want to use the people that we know, the knowledge we have to
Yeah.
really make that change rather than inspire. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like inspire, you'll say like, "Oh, this inspired me," but it doesn't mean that you want something to change.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're right. It's not as action orientated, is it? As
yeah,
actually make
sometimes you
people
watch a
fun.
talk and you're like,
Yeah,
"Wow, that really inspired me," but will that make you stand up
yeah,
and raise your voice and make that change? I think there is that small difference. And so going back to your question, I think that we are not talked about. I think it's
nice.
not even being discriminated against. Well, it is part of that, but I think it's not even an industry. It's really we are usually forgotten. We
Forgot.
are those that are below on the list of people to think about
Yeah,
and talk about. That is my own experience.
yeah. I mean, that's terrible. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, but I think, I mean, what you're doing is inspiring to me because you are using your experience in order to do something about that. So I guess from the outside in, you are inspiring change, but you are actually doing that change.
Yeah, no,
That's
definitely, and I hope that I am to others, but yeah, it isn't my goal to be inspiring. It's
yeah,
it's really to help make that change, but I do understand where
yeah,
where that comes from, and
yeah,
um, it's part of making that change, I guess.
yeah. So what are you? I mean, making change on such a huge issue is a big job for you to to handle. So where is it that you are specifically trying to make that change?
So it's one of my passions. So it's not like my main focus,
Mm,
but what I try to do is I try to tackle it from two ways. So
okay.
I try to educate people that are normal
Yeah.
um, onto what is it to be different, how to actually interact with us. And actually, it's just saying, look, interact with us in the same
Yeah.
way you would with anyone else.
Yeah.
And we're capable of doing, anything you want us to.
Yeah.
And then the other side of that is talking to people with disabilities that maybe have been in industries or have been in a world with a lot of disabled people,
Yeah.
and that have that thought process where they think able-bodied people don't accept us. So that also happens where they are actually thinking, oh, they don't accept us. And then on the other side, you might have people that want to help, want to be part of that change, but feel like every time they try, well, it doesn't work. So that's kind of the two ways that I try to approach it.
Yeah. And one of the things that you speak about a lot, and I mean, we spoke about briefly on the phone the other day, was the equality of access in the workplace. And just explain that. So I've watched videos on LinkedIn. What do you think needs to be done about this? Because something needs to be done quickly, and it's a disgrace really that it's even a situation. But what do you think needs to be done?
Yeah, no, definitely. And one of the main things you will see is if you look at roles that are, for example, on LinkedIn, you will always see the same description of like, we're equal and we accept. And but we, as people that are different, we know that, and we know it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So we need to see that the company truly believes that, and actually they explain how they will actually make the hiring process equal and accessible. And I've had conversations where I was at VMware where I told them, look, some parts of what you're doing are good, but some parts of it you're not thinking of. For example, I'll give an example. Is they had a test where when you were hired, you need to do a test, a cognitive test, and you have a limit of time. Now, I have dyspraxia, and I can be quite slow in some exercises. The role that I was going for was sales. And I told them, look, I can sell things, I can tell the story, but I cannot answer mathematical questions in the 5 minutes you give me. That's just not gonna happen. So that process is not that true for us.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing with us is you need to have people in your workforce that have that problem. It's just as easy as that. The more people that you want from different backgrounds, the only real specialists are the one that are living it on a day-to-day basis. So to have more, you need to have some.
Well, exactly, yeah, because otherwise everyone's ideas are exactly the same. No one sees things from a different perspective, then no one is there to pick up on that and say, listen, you need to do this differently. And I think this obviously covers the whole diversity and inclusion, where you need that team in order to hire that team. But yeah, I think what you're saying is completely right. And yeah, I guess companies I have spoken about this quite a lot with a lot of different people about like quotas. And mostly I speak about it in terms of like women in the workplace, and some huge companies have these quotas that 20% of their board needs to be female. It's like, what are your thoughts on that in terms of applying it to disability?
It's an advantage for us to get hired.
Yes.
That's one positive way of looking at it, obviously. But I personally don't like it.
No.
I think you shouldn't make a difference. I think people, the thing is, so again, I'll use an example. So when I did my interview at VMware and at Ivanti now, I could choose when I disclosed my disability. So I usually do it at the end of my interview.
Yeah.
Because imagine I had done the interview in person, I would have had two interviews. I would have had the first one where they're like, oh wow, he's in a wheelchair, will he be able to do a role?
Right.
And then I would have had the second one where I would have to be like, oh, actually, I'm better than the others at this role. So it's like those two things.
What you've just said about having two interviews is so interesting. Do you think that comes down to like subconscious bias?
Oh, definitely.
And then like the actual interview?
No, definitely. The first time I saw some of my colleagues, I could see on their face, they were like, oh, wow, he's really disabled. And it's not a problem to me. You know, I'm used to it. I've had my disability my whole life.
Yeah.
I don't take it as an offense. I don't feel, you know, oh no, they will take less of me, because 2 minutes into the conversation, they will realize, oh, it's the same Alex I've been talking to for 6 months. That's the advantage of being remote, because they already know you, so they quickly forget that other part. Whereas if they had first met me in a wheelchair, I would have had to like struggle for some time for them to see me as their equal. And then, you know, so I do like that. And I do think that there is definitely a bias. And one of the things I talk about in most of my talks is that I think that COVID has this silver lining where we've all went remote, and you know, cybersecurity companies like mine, you know, use that, and we are securing all of that everywhere, workplace. Just doing a bit of my salesy part, but but the advantage is that a big thing that companies were saying about hiring people with disabilities was it's not accessible. You know, our offices are not accessible. How will they come to the office? Will we have to adapt? Will we have to invest? All of that is thrown out of the window now that we're remote, because at home everything is adapted, and everything, I can do everything. And if I apply for a role, and that is one thing that I've been saying ever since I was a teen to every recruiter I spoke to, is we don't just apply to any role. We know that it takes a lot of energy for us to do the interview, to maybe go in person. So we thoroughly read all of the description and make sure that we actually are able to do everything that's on the role. So if we don't do the interview, don't ask us, oh, are you able to do that? If we applied, our disability is not part of the conversation. Our skills might be just like anyone, or our experience, yes, but our disability is not. Otherwise, we would not have applied. And so that's one of the things I would say that would already help a lot in hiring people with disabilities or from different backgrounds, is trusting them in their own abilities and what they can do. You know, they've been the way they are their whole life. So
yeah, definitely. No, I think that's so true. I think, you almost have to work twice as hard to even get to the same point, just because of people's, you know, unconscious bias and the fact that it's just not accessible. And it's shocking to me that unless COVID had not have happened, that maybe the world would still be like that. I mean, I presume that it would, and COVID's been a wake up call for some businesses, and thinking, okay, this is a way to, you know, to kind of help get rid of that bias that's in the business. But I think
I don't think it is. I think that we can, yes, and now recruiters need to see that. Like I say in my other talk, when I speak about end user computing, recruiters should see that untapped market of talent that they haven't been able to really, let's say, reach out to or attack. Whereas now they can, because there is not that limitation of which country are you in, you know, what kind of help do you need. That's not really, you know, when I talked with my manager, I said, look, if you want me to come in once a week, I can. But I'm not going to come in every single day. I'm not even going to come like 4 times a day or a week or 3 times a week, because I can do my role remotely. I can understand you want to see me a bit, but you know, it takes a lot of energy. One day at the office is like 5 days at home.
Yeah.
And so those are the conversations that recruiters and companies are having with normal people, but it's even more important with people with, you know, special needs and yeah.
Yeah, just to be flexible around what works for them and what they feel comfortable doing. Because, yeah, like you said, you can easily do the job at home. And if it's not making a difference to anyone's performance, I mean, I think this in general, really, but more so in this, you know, in these circumstances. But this whole, I know we sort of said about how you're not inspiring change, but I personally think you are, sorry. Who is an extraordinary person in your life that has helped inspire change?
So I'll try to shorten the story, but I've been in a boarding school like 5 years.
Okay.
After I had a big surgery on my legs with like 16 incisions and like
Wow.
changing whole of my legs, I was in a hospital for 6 months at like
Wow.
7 years old.
Oh,
And then I was in a boarding school to the rehabilitation for like
okay.
5 years,
Wow.
to tell a bit of my background. And I was in a boarding school and it was Dutch. And
Okay.
originally I only spoke French. And so I was a bit lost. And one person that I met there, he had, you know, he was more disabled than I am. So he was in an electric wheelchair. He couldn't move all that much.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did learn from him is what he would do is he would like draw funny pictures on his wheelchair and shocking stuff. And he was quite older than me. And I was like, why would you do that? You know, like, and his response stays with me till today. It was that people were looking at me anyway, so I give them a reason to do so. And just that sentence taught me everything about being able to laugh about yourself, and not in a way that's, you know, diminishing who you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
but just not taking yourself all too seriously.
Mm.
And being able to, you know, in difficult situations, distance yourself from that situation and
Yeah.
saying, look, it's just something that's happening, but it doesn't define who I am.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately with time, that friend, you know, because of his disability, he died. And I have a tattoo actually on my wrist to remember him. And that is one person that still till this day, when I do sports competitions and all those things, he's there by my side and really, you know, has really impacted me just with that one thing that I keep remembering, really.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing story, and such an amazing lesson to learn so young as well. But yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone can apply that to their lives as well. Because yeah, I think the world is such a serious place. And yeah, it's nice to sort of just have a laugh about things.
Well, you know how we talk about, you know, about work and subconscious bias and all those things. Like in work now, we're realizing, oh, okay, disability. But once I go out of the door, I still get a lot of judgment. I could be CEO of a company, but when people interact with me, sometimes they still think, oh, he's just a guy in a wheelchair. And one of the examples is that sometimes I go to a bar and some people come up to me and they just say, oh, you know, what's your disability? And I could get angry because they don't even know me. They come out of nowhere and they just ask what's my disability. And instead of doing that, relating to what I just said before, is I say, you know, maybe you should ask my name first.
Yeah.
And then they realize, you know, how offensive what they just did actually is. And I don't take any offense because I'm used to it. But then they realize, oh, I've actually not even seen you as a person. I've just seen like your disability. And again, having that I'm looking for the word in English, but the way to like being able to laugh about it allows you to not take those things too seriously, and let it affect the rest of your day, the rest of your week, the rest of
Yeah.
your month.
So it's almost like a defense mechanism, really, in order for people to give people the opportunity to take a step back and look at themselves and think, okay, what have I just said? Or why have I just done that? But also to help just
because if I were to be angry, they would have been like, oh, what a dick, right?
Yeah.
But because I've done it in the way that I did, next time they will see someone in a wheelchair, it'll automatically change in their head, and they'll be like, oh yeah, last time I did that. And that wasn't a good approach. And then they will just interact with them like a normal person. The same thing happens when I work with kids. What I did is I did a workshop with kids that weren't in a wheelchair, and I had tennis classes, and we had those wheelchairs, and I said, go in the wheelchair. And after, for 30 minutes, they found it really fun and games. But after an hour, it was a bit annoying. And after 1 hour, I saw in their eyes that they were looking at me differently. They realized that I was just the same as them. I was just sitting down. And so it's exactly that same realization that person in the bar had, where he's like, oh, actually, if I were sitting down and you were like, oh yeah, what's this? You wouldn't like it, because I am your equal. So same approach. It's really about coaching people, and that's the approach I try to have to really try to make that change.
Yeah, which does. I mean, like you said, you have an action that you do in hope that next time it will influence a change in their mind. So yeah, I mean, I think you are definitely an extraordinary person inspiring change, whether you think you are or not. But no, it's been